Hello, my name is Sunakshi Wadhwa. I'm from the incredible land of India. Tune on if you want to learn a little bit more about India and my personal life. Okay, now in Hindi. Okay. नमस्ते, सत श्री अकाल। मेरा नाम सोनाक्षी वाधवा है और मैं एक बहुत ही सुंदर देश से हूँ, भारत। अगर आपको भारत के बारे में और जानना है और मेरी ज़िंदगी के बारे में कुछ जानना है तो इस वीडियो को देखते रहिए। So I'm born in India. I was born in this beautiful city called Chandigarh. And then after that, my family moved a lot. So I think I lived in 7 different cities within India. And then in 2008, we decided to move to China, which was a really big decision for our family to make. So I lived in China for a couple of years, which was amazing. And then when we came back, we lived in India for a little bit, and then my parents moved to Saudi Arabia and I moved to the US to go to McAllister College. I have to say that the 3 different points when I had the biggest cultural shocks was when I moved from my hometown to a different city within India. And then when I moved from India to China and then from India to the US. So when I moved from my hometown to another city in India, it was a big shock to me because everything that had been my normal for 7 years was just completely taken away from me. And I was thrown in this completely different state, far away from home, with no friends or no one that I knew of, and people who talked a different language, people who dressed differently. But I loved that experience. I think I realized the value of actually having access to people from different cultures and backgrounds. People might look different, people might come from different backgrounds, but they're actually the same people. We all have the same concerns, the same worries. Similar things make us happy, similar things make us sad. And the second biggest cultural shock came when I moved from India to China. And I was just never in my wildest dreams could I have ever imagined what China would have been back in that time. I remember when I moved, I didn't even realize that the food would be different. We get Chinese food in India. I was just like, yeah, it's going to be like Chinese food that we have in India, that's going to be in China, except they're just going to call it food. But it was a completely different ballgame. I remember that the first day that I moved, one of the most vivid memories is of going to a grocery store. And in India, because we have a lot of vegetarians, we have a separate butcher shop, even within a grocery store. People, we just have separate butcher shops in general. So when you go to a grocery store, you generally don't see the meat physically, or you can't really smell it. But in China, when I went to a grocery store, there was all types of meat everywhere, and I could just smell it all. The only meats I'd seen till that point in time was chicken. And so when I moved to China, just in first day grocery store experience, I saw all different types of meats and I could smell it all. And I remember crying that day and just being take me back home because I can't deal with it. But 2 years fast forward, absolutely loved my time in China. I would run to China to eat a hot pot during a cold winter day in Minnesota. So overall, I really loved the experience, and I'm really glad that I actually got the chance to be in China and to really see what the actual Chinese culture looks like. My third culture shock was when I moved from India to the US. It wasn't a big shock in terms of look at the infrastructure, it just looks very different. The biggest shock to me was that this was the first time I'd moved so far away all by myself. All of the previous moves that I had done were always with my family. So looking back at it 4.5 years later, it's the life journey of that. It's an experience that I would have never missed out. So Bollywood, very unoriginal, is the Hollywood of India, but I think it is the second biggest film industry in the world. I think we produce movies in more than 20-30 languages, so it's very exciting. Bollywood is known throughout the world, but it's something that we Indians keep very close to our heart. So what I think is that in India, there are 3 things people, an average Joe, always knows about: politics, cricket people, cricket people can tell you I'm not an athlete, cricket stars, so cricket athletes, and then the third one is Bollywood. Everyone knows what's happening in every Bollywood star's lives. We care about when they eat, when they sleep, when they fart, when who they're dating, who they're breaking up with. So Bollywood is a big part of all of our lives. My favorite Bollywood movie is all times is Queen. I love the actor. What I love about her is that she is where she is today because of all of her hard work. In Bollywood, like it is the case in the other industries in India, there's a lot of nepotism, which essentially means that like where you end up is really a factor of who your parents are and where you were born. But that's one example of Kangna Ranaut who really exemplifies the fact that if you work really hard, if you're really talented, and if you want something really bad, you can achieve it and you can become famous. So the funny thing about yoga is that it is more famous in the US, or it's more commonly practiced by an average person in the US than it is in India. And I find that very troubling, actually, because in India, the people who generally do yoga are the saints, or like very spiritual people. And like they're the ones who actively practice and advocate for yoga. But an average person doesn't really know how to do yoga. And I think that this is just one of the examples of many examples of how after colonization, like after the British left us, I think that we're still very much ingrained, we have a very ingrained imperialistic mindset where we value our own culture less than we value like the Western culture. So like nowadays people would like go out for a run, people would go out to the gym, but we see very few people who are actually going towards yoga. Our current Prime Minister, though, he's trying to rectify the situation, so we like actively celebrate World Yoga Day, which we didn't even do before he came into power. So the World Yoga Day I think is really interesting. That's where like everyone from offices, schools, and like all of the different institutions get together and do yoga, even if it's for like an hour, or even if it's for show. But I really wish that people in India knew more about yoga, because I've learned yoga in the US and I cannot imagine my life without yoga.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's such a difficult choice. I love food and I love Indian food. The greatest thing about it is that there's no typical Indian food. Every different state, like every state in the country has a different cuisine. They have a different style of preparing ingredients, and they also have different ingredients. So the greatest thing about India is that there's just so much diversity of culture, of language, of festivals, but also of food. So you can never get bored of just eating Indian food. My favorite dish, it's such a difficult choice. Oh my god, I love everything. I think what I love the most though is samosa, stuffed with either potatoes or with any kind of meat. But I think it's just like such a good snack. It's crispy, it's tangy, and like if you have it with chutneys, it's just like such a good mix of flavors. But I love everything else too. When you think about moving so far away from your home, the only advice that I have for international students is really be grateful for the privilege that you have, because a lot of people don't have that privilege. And I know how difficult it is. I've been in your spot. I've been incredibly homesick. I've missed the worst days are when there's a really big festival that happens back in India, or like back at home, and everyone's celebrating, and you're in this foreign land where no one even knows what it is, and it's just a really, really sucky experience. I know how incredibly difficult it is, but I think you should also give yourself immense credit for making this very bold decision of moving so far away from your home. I think it's only risk takers who actually do that, because let's face it, there's so many people who do have the opportunity to move so far away, but they choose not to. So I think every single day, look into the mirror and say, you are a great risk taker. You've made such a bold decision to move away from everything that was familiar to you to have a better life for yourself, and you should make the most out of it. Any given day is not going to be perfect. It's not going to be your ideal day, but that's just how life is. You're going to have ups and downs, but all you can do is take the most out of the time that you have. So be really grateful for the privilege that you have of studying internationally. Be mindful of it, be appreciative of it, and make the most out of every single opportunity. And in terms of career advice, have a positive mindset, know it's all going to be all right. Trust me, it will be. Work super hard. That's the only thing that's in your control. You cannot control what Trump does to you tomorrow. You have no control over that. But what you have control over is how much you give, how much hard work you do for a particular interview or to write even a resume or a cover letter. So work hard. And the third thing is reach out to people who are in the same boat as you are, because trust me, that's going to make you feel a lot better. Let's go!